move over.
All right, there you go.
Good evening. Welcome to our first digital virtual town council meeting. We have everyone accounted for that's part of this council meeting. It is an electronic meeting. It's Tuesday, March 31st. So we will call this to order. We'll first start by the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag,
United
States of America,
and to
to
the
the
republic
republic for which it stands,
stands one nation,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And for those who pray, I would like to lead in prayer. Dear Lord, come to our aid now in the midst of the global spread of the coronavirus, so that we may experience your healing love. Heal those who are sick with the virus. Heal us from fear. Heal us from pride. Stay by our side in this time of uncertainty and sorrow. Be with those who have died from the virus. Be with the families of those who are sick or have died. Be with the doctors, nurses, researchers, medical professionals, and all first responders who heal and help those affected and who put themselves at risk in the process. Be with all leaders at this time. Give us the foresight to act with charity and true concern for the well-being of the people we are here to serve. Give us the wisdom to invest in long-term solutions that will help prepare for and prevent future outbreaks. In place of our anxiety, give us peace. In this we pray, amen.
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 Following now, the adoption of the agenda. You can see it on the screen if everyone's on Facebook. It's an easy agenda. We're not going to leave it up the whole meeting. We will go through communication and updates, and I'll relay the 4 items as we are presenting them. If there are no changes, is there an adoption to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? We'll need to do a roll call, I think is what I'm told. So all in favor, and I'll do a roll call, and I'm only calling it from the faces I see on the screen. Larry Toomer,
Here.
approve the agenda. Yay or nay?
Yay.
Fred Hamilton,
Yes.
Bridget Frazier,
Yes.
Dan Wood,
Yes.
Lisa Salka, yes. So that's unanimous. Next, we have public comments. The way everyone's been doing it, our town clerk will read the public comment. We have a clock that will come up. She's going to read it as quickly as she can, but at 3 minutes, we will stop and move on.
Ready? All right.
Ready.
Stop. Just time it. All right. We've got Carol Weir, 21 Park Circle in Bluffton. Carol writes, "Thank you for your service to our community, especially at this difficult time. I would like to ask you to please implement a shelter-in-place order and enforce it with the Bluffton Police Department. Teenagers are not respecting the current guidelines for social distancing. They are having sleepovers, pool parties, and football games. They are bored because they're out of school and driving around town in full carloads. I know because I'm a parent of 2 teenagers who are resentful because they're not allowed to do this, but their friends are. Please, for the good of all, shut down this activity with a shelter-in-place order and enforce it. History will be on your side." Okay, second comment was submitted by Karen Bartlett, Iris Carpatella, and Kathy Campbell. It's all the same comment. Their comment is as follows. Please vote for a shelter-in-place order in Bluffton. There are several reasons why this is critical. The large percentage of older population in Bluffton, the virus is spreading, it has not peaked, and we have the opportunity to slow it down if we act now. Evidence, look at the northern cities that do not react with stricter guidelines immediately. They are overwhelmed. We have limited hospital capacity in Beaufort County. And finally, we still have tourists arriving from out of state. Please vote for a shelter in place and inconvenience now to prevent this from becoming a catastrophe for our community. Next comment is from Sue Brown of Bluffton. Sue says, I'm writing to provide my opinion that a shelter in place should be enforced. My husband and I are in our 60s and moved to Bluffton from New Jersey 3 years ago. We have 3 grandchildren and 4 grandchildren in New Jersey and Maryland who are all sheltering in place, and it is terrifying for us to watch from afar. They are obviously concerned about us in South Carolina after seeing the reports of visitors from the Northeast being in our area. We've been at home and only go to the store when absolutely necessary. We walk our dog in the park in our development for fresh air and exercise, but move a good distance away from a few people that cross our path. We have seen what is happening to our family and friends up north and feel helpless. They're also doing the right thing by not coming to South Carolina. They do not want to take the chance of carrying it to us, and they are asymptomatic. Unfortunately, I can say we have witnessed many others not social distancing and going about their day as per normal in our town development. Please don't make this another hotspot by not doing the right thing. The residents of Bluffton and Hilton Head are more important than the revenue generated by tourism. It is terrifying to worry about catching the coronavirus in this area when there are way too many people compared to hospital capacity. Our leaders need to take the bull by the horns and put a shelter in place, whether it is local or state. I'm ashamed to say that we live here when friends and family ask what is being done to keep us safe. Again, do the right thing. Then we've got Eric Shaw. Eric Shaw of Bluffton. He states, my son and I are proud residents of Bluffton with my young daughter residing on Hilton Head with her mom. I have visitation at my home 3 times a week. I'm an Emmy-winning TV writer and former published medical researcher writing with a simple request on behalf of the many single parents. Should Governor McMaster or local leadership invoke a more rigid, safer at home shelter-in-place order in the coming days? Please add clear language to an announcement that provides explicit permission to maintain door-to-door child visitation. It's in the child's best interest while not adding medical risk, household to household, mom to dad. I'm unsure, frankly, if such a safer at home order would even temporarily modify existing visitation orders. But I can tell you that some parents will use this as an opportunity to cause distance with their exes. Please don't allow this. I have shared this concern with local mayors and council members that share this with you and ask that language be inserted and the issue be raised. I attach a nicely written order as an example from a Weston, Florida family member. How easy would it be to add a lone bullet point or clarify their care for or support a family member wording to care for, support, or continue door-to-door child visitation to anything created in Bluffton or Beaufort County? In short, if you can go to Publix for necessities, I shouldn't have an issue in seeing my daughter for door-to-door visitation. And there's an attachment that he sent and it will be included in the minutes. Next comment is from Janice Robinson. She's from Cypress Ridge in Bluffton. She states, the town of Bluffton needs to stop the building in the reserve at Cypress Ridge. There are dozens of people building homes right next to each other with no social distancing occurring, and it is not an essential service. Our last comment is from Christina Hacker of Bluffton. She states, as a nurse on the front lines, I want to assure you that all we healthcare workers are tirelessly working to prevent the spread of the coronavirus and save lives. It is definitely a frightening time on the front lines, but we are pushing through. As you may have already heard, the mayors of Savannah and Charleston have issued a stay-home order to further prevent the spread of the virus from being passed person to person in their community. As a responsible resident, I feel the need to ask our mayors, how come our towns are not activating the stay-at-home order? Do we not have confirmed cases? Are you doing the most that you can do to protect us from this invisible enemy? If we already know that such an order would further protect us, why is it not being implemented in our cities? The known consequences of the coronavirus has already devastated many families, communities, and countries across the globe. Isn't it our ethical responsibility to make sure we do our part in the fight? As residents and citizens of the beautiful land of the free, I'm urging each and every one of you to help me reach our elected officials to request that the stay-home order be put in place and protect us now. We need to do the right thing in order to get ahead of this. That's it.
All right, public comment is over. Y'all, just as an FYI, if you know how to mute and you think a phone's gonna ring, try to mute while you're not talking, because it helps everyone hear, especially on Facebook. So we are moving on to communication and updates, which is the reason for this meeting. The 4 items, we're gonna start with Mayor and Council, then Mark Orlando, Town Manager, Chief Chris Chapman, Chief of Police, and Captain Scott Chandler with the Emergency Management Department for the town. So we will start with Mayor and Council, and I'll let everyone go before me. So if anybody wants to update on what they've heard, any questions that we can discuss at this time, let us know. We'll all take notes and get the appropriate person to answer them. I'll start with Dan.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that I think the citizens of Bluffton are doing a fabulous job, along with the people of South Carolina, and we're heeding the governor's word. And I know that you'll touch on some of the comments that just were read a moment ago. And, you know, I know the police department is also looking out for some of the elderly and those in the community that know those of us that need to reach out to them, let us know as well. We want to do everything we can to pull this together. We will all get through this. It's going to be long, but we'll get through it. I have no doubt about the people of Bluffton.
Thanks, Dan. Next, we'll go to Fred. Any questions, concerns, anything you want to relay at this point? And the floor is yours. Fred.
Dan, I did all that Dan said about the citizens of Bluffton not only being concerned, but trying to be progressive thinkers about how we can all take care of each other. But I like to put my my name out there and my phone number for any of our citizens that need some more information or clarities on things that's going on. I'm willing to either take it by phone call or email. And if you go to the town website, you can get my email. But my phone number is 843-384-8801. And a lot of the concerns that I've heard thus far, even in public comment, I think the mayor is going to address it. Are you, Mayor? Especially about the stay-at-home request. Okay, good. Then I won't belittle the time to do that. But again, my phone number is 843-384-8801. Or you can email me and go to the town website to get my email. This is a very difficult time for all of us to make these adjustments. Some of the things that we had as good habit are greeting and trying to be loving and friendly to our family and friends. These are good habits that we have to try to break. And I know that makes life even more difficult when you can't show your affection to your family members and friends. But please, 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 this is more serious than even I can imagine. So I know it's more serious than you can imagine. Let's try to take care of each other. And some of the things that we can do ourselves, Terry, later on, I'd like you to address, I heard the governor say today that daycares can stay open. I really think we need to figure out how we can get him to understand that that's not going to be safe for us or our family members. And thank you, Mayor. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Fred. Larry?
I guess I'll save most of my comments for the end, but I just want to reiterate when people ask me what I think, what I feel, and all that stuff, I try to get everyone to understand that there's not a person breathing on this earth today that's ever been through what we're going through. So speaking of uncharted waters, I just ask everyone to understand that there will probably be some decisions made that they're not very happy with. And that they don't agree with, and I'm sure that I won't agree with all of them either, but we have to do all we can for our families and for the people. And that is our goal. There's nothing in it for any of us as council or our chief or our town manager or anyone else involved in these things other than the best for our families and all the people in our town and the rest of the state. So I just ask for patience and understanding. Voice your opinion, that's fine. But there's going to be things that we have to deal with that none of us have ever done before. And there may be mistakes made along the way. So I just ask everyone to have an open mind and be patient and appreciative for what everyone is doing for them as to this point. I will add one thing that kind of made me think and hit kind of close to home for me yesterday. As my daughter's a trauma nurse at Memorial in Savannah, her last words before going into work at 6 o'clock last night was, she said, "Dad, we need to do more. Everybody needs to stay home more because we are not going to be able to handle a whole, if we get hit really, really bad with this thing, the hospital, just the amount of work." She said one patient that they're caring for, it takes up one nurse to tend to one patient, you know, and on the respirator and all that, because they not only, it's not like a regular person in an ICU, it's the machines, excuse me, the monitors and the machine stuff are in the hallway. They have extension tubes run into the respirators. Even their IV lines and stuff are extended so that when a beeper goes off, they can go to the hall, look at it and see if it's just something that needs to be changed, rotated. But when they go into that room, they have to have a full suit on, protective suit. And once they go in and check on the patient, they have to totally undress, leave all those clothes in there, come out, wash up, and get redressed before they can go to another person to help with them. So they kind of opened my eyes a little bit, hearing that from her. So again, I just ask everybody to look at it with an open mind and be patient, and hope to God that we can all get through this thing together. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Larry. And thanks for sharing about your daughter's experience. Bridget, anything right now before we get into our updates from the group? You're up.
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you to all citizens who've been being patient with us as we've been sharing out information as best we could. I would like to admonish everyone to adhere to the guidelines that have been set by the state, by DHEC, and others who are trying their best to ensure everyone's safety at this time. Would also like to implore everyone not to give in to hysteria. I know it's kind of difficult to say in where we are because this isn't something we've experienced before, but if everyone would do their diligence and making sure you're only sharing out information that's coming from credible sources, would do a lot as far as making sure we try to keep information out there that's accurate going forward. Also, just in seeing some of the things that have been shared online and listening to the comments from others, one thing that we do in Bluffton is we do embrace everyone. And I do not want us to give into discriminating against one another and talks of, you know, just because you see an out-of-state tag does not mean that person is a tourist who just arrived here. They could be a resident who's a snowbird who's here part-time during the year. So I would like everyone to just be respectful of each other and use this as a time not to distance ourselves in being respectful, but that we're actually coming together as we can and trying to get through this as a community.
Thanks, Bridget. Just to sum up, and y'all are all doing a great job. I think we're probably holding the best Zoom council to date. So good job on everybody's part. Maybe I'll just end it because I think I'll have some questions under discussion. I have two phrases I think really reflect what we all said: benefit over burden. What an easy tagline. There are many benefits over the burdens that we're putting on ourselves, and we're putting them on us as well as our residents. And stay home to stay safe. So easy. A lot of these comments were on a shelter in place, and I'll let Chief and Mark really, and Terry even chime in on that. Bluffton's a little unique. You can go out your door in some of your residences and see Hardyville to your left, unincorporated Beaufort County across the street, and then there's Bluffton. We have to be unified on anything we do that the governor hasn't already sent as an executive order. So I think you'll know from Bluffton, when we put something out, we mean what we say, and we say what we mean. We are going to enforce the orders of the governor. The governor was very clear today. He is law. His non-essential services will trump anything that's been passed by these other cities. And what we want to put out is something we want our chief and our police department to be able to enforce. So shelter in place, non-essential, essential. I think a lot of that's been taken care of with the governor's press conference at 4. I personally was very proud to see he listed what needed to close, because if you look at the Homeland Security list of essential businesses, there are many, and people again can find loopholes in anything. Look at everything that's been passed so far. People are finding ways to go around it. So I think it was very clear. If people were not clear, there was an email to contact to ask where they fit in that list. And until they get an answer, they're allowed to stay open. But it was pretty clear. Chief, I would love for you to get with that one, Mr. Shaw, I think, that had the public comment about visitation, and you can get with him later. We have his email, and reach out to him, because I agree with him that let's not use this for vendettas. Like Bridget said, let's not use this to start picking out people because they have different license plates than others. So I just thank you all. I thank all of our town for, my goodness, that they're following things before we ask them to do so. And I just can't thank the businesses enough. And I do hope, Mark, if you're gonna work on some issues, some ideas to help our businesses, we do look at that non-essential business list that had to close down, because they're gonna be hurting. And in our day, and I think all of us would agree, some of the non-essential are the most essential in a normal day. So I don't like the term, as we've all discussed, but that's what I've got. We'll go to Mark for an update. And again, if y'all would just mute and take notes on what you want to ask. If you want to do it after each update, fine with me. Just kind of do this to me. If not, we're going to wait till the end, and we'll just go through each of us to ask questions. So I'm open to whatever y'all want. But while they're talking, if you could mute it, if y'all have that ability on your device. Mark, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor Salka, members of the community. I've got a lengthy update, and I want to make sure I cover a lot of different topics tonight, so forgive me. I'd like to start off by saying the town of Bluffton has a well-prepared and very dedicated team, the people you see on this screen, as well as all those others that are working for the town. We're definitely vision and mission driven, and we are positioned to continue to take care of each other in the Bluffton community. That's a statement that I often say most mornings as we refocus on the day's work. As the manager, the health and safety of this staff and this wonderful community remain my top priority. So tonight I'd like to address a few things. One, an operational update. Two, I want to talk about priorities and resources. And three, I want to attempt to answer some questions that we've been being asked throughout my overview. So first and foremost, I just want to touch on a very high-level overview of the governor's orders, Governor McMaster's orders to date. I think it's important that we understand them all as a collective team, but also perhaps go on record tonight to do my best to summarize what we've heard from the governor thus far. In a few minutes, Chief Chapman will take the baton after my overview and explain to the community what that means from an education and enforcement protocol, amongst some other items. So first and foremost, there's been several exec orders that have set in motion both administrative and enforcement actions by our staff. the extension number one, or I should say order number one, was an extension of a tax compliant deadline moved to June 1st. That affects H-tax, A-tax, and in addition, the town also put in place an extension of business license payments at this time. So effective now, H-tax, A-tax, and business license payments are on hold. Fred, would you hit mute, Fred? I'm sorry to interrupt for a second. There's a lot of kickback. Somebody's kicking back on me pretty hard. So to clarify, the governor had SC DOR, an agency working under his power in the exec branch, extend the tax deadlines to June 1st. The most prominent of these are income taxes, state accommodations, H-tax, and admissions taxes. To answer a question that I've been asked a few times today, I know the county administrator has also been asked, neither the governor nor Department of Revenue have addressed any local taxes, including property taxes to date. So that's an important question trying to answer right now. And we do not have the authority or the ability to modify property tax payment schedules. That's set by the South Carolina Code and collected by the county. The governor's also put a social distancing exec order in place. He's required self-quarantine for individuals entering South Carolina from high-risk areas, and those areas identified as New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, New Orleans, and other hotspots. We've contacted all of our short-term rental business license holders. We've also contacted all of our commercial lodging businesses. We've made phone calls, and we're sending letters, or we've probably sent letters, they're in the mail today, with a copy of the flyer presented by the state addressing the 14-day quarantine requirement for visitors. So what we've done is we've essentially understood the governor's orders and called everybody that it would affect. Palmetto Bluff, they are a true and great partner. They have, the Montage is closed, but also they are not accepting any reservations from these areas specified as hotspots in their home rental program. So I think that's important. Closure of state waterways, Oyster Factory Park, dock, parking lot, boat ramp closed. Calhoun Street dock closed, and then all other county ramps and docks are closed. And today, the closure of non-essential businesses as defined by the order. Entertainment venues and facilities, recreational and athletic facilities and activities. And that also includes activities on commercial or public playground equipment. So there's a long list of entertainment venues, rec and athletic facilities, amongst some others. Those are all on our social media site. I know they're already up on the Town of Bluffton site. We've simply copied and pasted his exec order and posted those up there. It also lists non-essential as close contact service providers, barbershops as an example. And then there's a clarification assistance provided by South Carolina Department of Commerce. There's an email address and a phone number, and a team from Department of Commerce will review a business request for clarification, and the business will receive a response within 24 hours, according to the governor and the state of South Carolina. So what's important though, and this is a really important takeaway, if a business is not explicitly addressed in the governor's exec order, the business should continue normal operations until a determination is made. So there's going to be a lot of logic, common sense, and a lot of back and forth trying to make sense of this over the next while. If I could, before I move on, could I ask Terry Finger to perhaps address some of our public comment? I know those questions have been asked of me. I know they've probably been asked of all of council, but I think it's important for us to directly address why the town of Bluffton isn't putting in place a local shelter in place with local enforcement. I think that's a very important Q&A. Terry, if I could kick that to you for a second.
Okay, thanks, Mark and Mayor and Council. Last Tuesday, our office was tasked with drafting a stay-at-home ordinance or shelter-in-place ordinance for a countywide mayor-manager discussion that was held late Thursday afternoon last week. During the course of drafting that document, we did what we thought was sufficient research, which led us to believe that the only person that could issue such an order was the governor, and that the towns were actually preempted from issuing such an order. Of course, that was complicated by the fact that several jurisdictions in South Carolina and in Savannah across the river actually issued stay-at-home orders. It remains our opinion that they are not enforceable. The Attorney General has issued a number of Attorney General's opinions in the last week. All of those opinions indicate that the sole and exclusive power for such orders are with the governor. It's been our legal advice to Mark and to counsel that we do not believe that it makes sense to pass an ordinance. Charleston has, and Charleston has apparently are not enforcing the non-essential versus essential differentiation. And if a business up there that is deemed non-essential refuses to close, nothing is really being done about it. So it was our legal opinion as counsel for the town that we should not embark upon a course of action to invoke such an ordinance or a resolution, however we decided to do it, which was clearly unconstitutional. I think it potentially could lead to some significant liability. If we ordered businesses to close, we didn't have a right to do so. We could potentially have some exposure for which we may or may not have coverage under the insurance reserve fund. So that was our opinion. It remains our opinion today.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Terry. So in addition, so to paraphrase, the governor extended the tax deadline. We have a social distancing requirement, self-quarantine requirement, closure of waterways, and closure of non-essential businesses. Mayor and Council, you've taken a few actions as well. So there have been several public policy actions along the way. First and foremost, Mayor Salka, as a reminder, declared an emergency order on March 16th, not that long ago. The town of Bluffton adopted an emergency ordinance on March 17th, the following night when we had our town council meeting. And then thus far, you've passed 2 proclamations. First one being a request for the governor to issue a shelter-in-place exec order. And the second was a statement of town council's unanimous support for issuance of a social distancing mandate. So you've taken several steps, several public policy adoptions to date. We will have an April 14th regular town council meeting under an emergency order. We will also hold an April 22nd planning commission meeting, and both of those meetings will occur electronically. All other public meetings, however, including HPC, Historic Preservation Development Review Committee, and all the various other committees, have been canceled through April as of now. Operations-wise, we are following our emergency management plan and a pandemic response appendix. We're very aligned with Beaufort County, and Chief Chapman will allude to that later, and the Beaufort County Emergency Management Program in our region. I want to confirm, and I've received a couple calls today, so I want to make sure I'm very clear with this. We are open for business. So all general businesses that you know of for the town of Bluffton are open for business with one exception. Municipal court is closed through April. Municipal court is closed through April. Our buildings are closed to the public access, and we have a Dropbox system in place for all permitting and licensing. So you can come to town hall, drop off your application for a permit or a license. We pick it up, we process it, we approve it, we put it in your hands soon thereafter, and we're still out in enforcing and inspecting. So permitting and licensing and inspections continue, capital projects continue. Our Don Ryan Center for Innovation staff has provided a small pivot and are providing some leadership and guidance to help navigate small businesses during this pandemic. Our public works team continues to maintain and improve our facilities, and we've also hired 3 people this week. So we continue to hire during this crisis. We've hired 3 new police officers and our HAR team is onboarding them. 50% of our workforce is working remote. That's a big number. So 50% of our government is working remote. Several more are working mobile. So that means that several others, like the inspectors, the building inspectors, the stormwater inspectors, and several others aren't checking into a building every day. So they're not crossing paths. So I would estimate that all, with the exception of our law enforcement department, law enforcement center, and our police department, which is also our emergency management staff, are working remotely and mobile. And I want to, at this time, really express a sincere thank you to our police department and emergency management team. They're the soul and heart, the heart and soul of our workforce. Thank you, Chief Chapman, Captain Chandler, and Babkowitz, and everybody at the PD. I hope a lot of you are watching. We're also showing our support for first responders and medical staff, and are about to wrap all of our town facilities and parks with a lot of blue ribbons. You'll see that all over social media. So I know that other cities are recognizing that in urban areas with different ways, and we're starting to wrap our facilities appropriately and make sure that we're putting our best foot forward to acknowledge first responders and medical staff. And again, I remind everybody, collection of H-Tax and A-Tax and business licensing aren't due until June 1st, and perhaps that deadline will extend even further, and we'll have those discussions in the coming days. Where are my priorities right now? With Town Council support and guidance, and to align with Governor McMaster's executive order this evening, I intend on closing all municipal parks effective 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. This would entail further closure of DuBose Park, Oscar Fraser Park, Martin Family Park, and all playgrounds, open spaces, parking lot, restrooms, pavilions. I think it's time to close our park to have one simple message: all municipal parks are closed to the public. And I think this is the right time and the right thing to do, especially considering the governor's order of no allowance on public or commercial playgrounds. We're working with many in our regions to help small businesses navigate these uncharted times. Our Don Ryan Center is definitely playing the Town of Bluffton lead, along with Chris Forster, our finance director, and Scott Marshall, deputy town manager. We're also working with Beaufort County EDC. So the goal is to establish a small business resource guide as it relates to COVID-19. So there are federal mandates, state mandates, local nonprofit opportunities, local private opportunities, and even potential municipal stimulus options. I've been talking with most of you off and on, and putting a game plan together with my team. First and foremost, we're trying to understand everything that's going on. We're simply not trying to just put something in place to do it. We're trying to understand if there's any gaps from a federal, state, or nonprofit or regional level. There's some great examples that others have put in place. A couple of those examples are establishing a revolving loan fund in partnership with a local bank. One community in South Carolina has put together a revolving loan where the municipality guarantees some of those funds. It's a 2% loan, no principal and interest, for 6 months, and it allows funds up to $5K for certain businesses and up to $10K for others, and there's some qualifiers. And that's quick access to some funds to help leverage your business, to help your business leverage other funds, or potentially even just utilize those funds for the time being. We're looking into that. The municipalities that have done that haven't necessarily loaned the money, but they secured the funds. We're also addressing and looking into abating business license fees potentially for a period of time. Definitely deferring municipal tax deadlines beyond the June 1 date, but based upon some particulars of the governor order and the way all of that functions, we have to do that in a certain particular order. For now, they're not due till June 1st. Again, stay tuned, perhaps on a date pushing that out. I also would like to hire some future part-time and temporary full-time hires. I think there's nothing better to stimulate the economy than to hire some out-of-work workers. And I think when we all get back to basics, we may need some extra work. We may need some extra staff for the time being. So I'll share some of that plan with you in the very near future. I urge everybody watching tonight, it's something I took a look at. Scott Beebe told me about it. There's something called a Facebook Business Resiliency Toolkit. It's helped me as a manager. I think it's going to help all the small businesses out there as well. And I urge now more than ever, connect with your chambers, your bankers, and each other. I'm also preparing our fiscal 21 budget. I'm definitely anticipating some lost revenue into next year, both from A-tax, H-tax, of course, potentially a lot of other sources of revenue. So I'm rethinking the budget. And again, Town Council, you'll hear from me on this in a bit. The reason I bring this up is we have first reading of our next fiscal year budget, May 1st. And so not a lot of time between now and May's first reading to prepare our budget leading into the next fiscal year. And then I'm also just staying focused on regular business of the organization. I can't thank you all enough, Council, your perspective and leadership over the past weeks and your comments and concerns this evening. Please know I'm hearing you. We're all listening. Thanks to the community. I echo what I heard from Town Council. We do need the community's help to remain healthy so people don't become infected. We as a staff have a little phrase. I know a lot of people are saying it. We're practicing what we preach. We have instituted a culture of infection control. We are diligent. We're doing our very, very best to lead by example. And that is what is expected of the staff of this town. So I appreciate you all. And Mayor, that's my update for this evening.
Right. Council, do y'all want to stop in between? Because it's a lot of information. I think we're going to get the same amount from each of the others. Do you want to ask questions now, Mark? Or do you want to wait until the end?
Yeah, I
Thumbs
would-
up now, thumbs down later. Thumbs up now.
Madam Mayor, I have perhaps an answer to Councilman Hamilton's question earlier about childcare centers. If there is a question about whether childcare is essential or non-essential, or should be open or closed, under the order passed by the governor this afternoon, the Department of Commerce is entitled to pass further rules or regulations. They also are entitled to answer questions as to whether they're essential or non-essential. And then Councilman Hamilton, I think that's the only guidance I have at this time. The order's only been out for about an hour and a half now, and we've all looked at it hard, but that's all I can think I can offer on that question at this point.
Okay, so Dan said yes first, Fred. Let me get with Dan and then you can respond. Do y'all have any questions of Mark? Dan did this, so I'm going to start with him. So Mark and Dan.
Yeah, just a couple of things. And before I say it, I realize that all of us on council are out there in the public arena talking to the citizens, the business owners, and trying to understand what they're going through. One of the things that I've received on feedback recently, and Mark just touched on this, is some of the business owners, it's a cumbersome process to file for the SBA loans. And, a lot of people have had to wait 4 hours at a time to do it. They've been told to call back. Some of the people talk about how difficult it is to navigate it. So I want to go back again and say that your chambers are a great resource to maybe help you navigate this. I know that the Hilton Head Bluffton Chamber is on top of it. I know that Don Brashears with the Greater Bluffton Chamber sent me something out today that I sent to some business owners. The other thing is that's a finite sum of money that the federal government is putting out there. And it sounds like a lot of money, but when you look at the universal effect of the number of businesses across the land, you need to get out there and file as quickly as possible. And again, if you need help to do it, reach out to your chamber or other local business people that do that. Another question I had, and Mark, I'm go with the flow, but I'm curious, like Martin's Park, an open space. Do we need to close open spaces?
Mark?
Yeah, Councilman Wood, I believe we do. I think just from a clarity of message, some parks being open, some parks aren't open, some bathrooms are open, some aren't open. I just think a clarity of message, and if it was important enough to close all associated parks with river access. And I think that was more or less my thought process with that. So definitely a hard decision to make. But when
No,
you
I-
realize that the OFP ramp is closed, not just to that, but the governor's order alluded to all parks, all parking lots, all associated facilities with the ramp, keeping some open and some closed, I think just becomes burdensome, as well as we're sending some mixed messages back to the state if we do that, in my opinion. I also believe that others in the region will do the same.
Anything else, Dan? Was that it for Mark?
Thank you.
Great. Anybody else kind of raise their finger if they have a question? Larry, you're up. No, Larry's
No, I
up.
said later.
Okay, anybody else on Mark's?
Can you not see me, Lisa?
Mm-hmm. Bridget?
So yeah, I have two concerns. I know a lot of people were kind of confused or say upset in the messaging that goes behind public access to like boat ramps and stuff are closed. But does that mean that those who live in private and gated communities will still be able to access the waterways for fishing and recreational uses? I know some people's concern if that was their resource for being able to provide provisions for themselves and their families and not having access, but those who live in private communities do. There were questions on how that's being enforced.
So the governor's order essentially.
Mark, repeat that because she went in and out and I just noticed Larry couldn't hear and I don't know if anyone else could.
Okay. Councilwoman Frazier, to paraphrase, asked the question, does the governor's executive order affect private gated communities and private river access as well as public access? My understanding, and I know Terry's on the call here tonight too at the meeting, it affects public access to the waterway, and those public access parking lots, ramps, docks, and all of those other features are closed. It does not affect private access. My understanding of it is, to your point, behind the gates, those private access docks, it does not affect Councilwoman. And so we have to enforce the boat landing, the boat ramp, the park, the facility, the Calhoun Street dock. What we are not able to do is enforce the waterway in that regard.
Okay, thank you. My second point was glad to hear your mention about some of the economic things that are being provided for small businesses through the Chamber of Commerce. I would also like to say, like, I would love for us to continue to explore, even come up with what we're able to do in our purview to assist them, because a lot of resources and help has been put out there for, I know, food and beverage restaurants, as they can have a lot more creativity. But I think of our small businesses who are, servicing the beauty industry, like salons and even small event venues, and local musicians who do not have those similar outlets to continue going. And so the thought that many of them are drowning right now, would be nice if we could even put together like a centralized location for them to go and access resource on how they can try to stay afloat a little bit, I think would be great. Or I would love to see us do something like that.
Yes, ma'am. It sounds like, and what we've been working on is ultimately, for lack of a better phrase, an economic development action plan that considers those micro businesses and smaller businesses. Trying to understand the gaps right now is important for us. We're trying not to duplicate efforts, especially by pledging some of our fund balance in local dollars. If there are state dollars or other dollars available, we would rather be the technical experts helping those folks find technical experts and subject matter experts so that they could make the application. What you'll see from my team in the coming days is a plan overview to accomplish some of those things you're asking for. So I pledge, and I want everybody to know we are working on that, and it is our highest priority aside from public safety.
Thank you, Mark.
Great. Thank you, Bridget. You were just going in and out just a tiny bit. So I think he replied to your question and said what your question was. Fred, you okay on this one? Any questions of Mark and his update?
Not for Mark, but I thank Terry for his response or his opinion. But now I like to, I guess, make a comment to our citizens. Daycare may be an essential part in your life, but it could also be detrimental to your health. So let's try as much as you can to make sure your children doesn't get in harm's way. That's all I have.
Okay, anything else? Just write it down at the end of it. We can discuss. I ditto what everyone said, Mark. I don't need to repeat it. So we'll move on to number 3, Chris Chapman, Chief of Police.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank all of you for your leadership during this crisis. Got a great, strong team, and I just want you to know that everybody's working this problem by the hour. Things change rapidly on us, and we're trying to solve the problems as quick as they're coming to us. So tonight, I want to speak just a little bit about the education and the enforcement issues with the executive orders. Got some comments and some things that I'd like to present to you guys tonight, and then talk about a few of the other things that we're doing as a law enforcement community to help keep our town safe during this crisis. So first of all, I want you guys to know, I want everybody in the community to know that we are seeking guidance from our legal team and from the Attorney General's office daily. Every time we get a new executive order, we're crawling through that executive order, trying to determine what we can and can't do from an enforceability standpoint. Terry, thank you and your staff for all the assistance that you have given us, trying to weed through that and determine what we can and can't do. We're trying to take a very common sense approach to this and trying to do the best we can and use as much discretion as we can. But let's talk about some of the executive orders. So there's 4 right now that really concern us from an enforceability standpoint. And I've said this several times, we're going to educate, and enforce. And for the most part, people are listening to us. When we have to address issues, our citizens are listening and doing what we ask. So that's a great thing. But the social distancing order, that's executive order number 13, I believe. And I want you to know that our officers are monitoring the community as they go through their patrol duties every day. And if they see an issue, their primary job is to get out, address that issue, to enforce the community, to explain what social distancing truly is. And probably 99.9% of the time when we've done that, the citizens have complied. Now, we can't be everywhere all the time, but if you call us with an issue, we will respond and try to address it. But as we see those issues, the citizens are doing what we ask, and that's important to know. The second thing that we're doing with the social distancing ordinance and executive order, that is we're educating our businesses. We are at a lot of our businesses when they open in the morning to make sure that people aren't gathering. We can't be everywhere every single time, but we're doing that on a regular basis. And we're also talking to the management and staff. And if you were to walk into Kroger or Ace Hardware right now, you will see that the management and the staff have taken social distancing seriously. There's markers on the floor to establish the 6-foot rules. You will notice that the staffs at these businesses are constantly cleaning. They're doing things to help prevent the spread. And that's what we need them to do. So we're on top of that. The second order that is brought a lot of questions is Executive Order 14, and that's the quarantine of visitors from out of state. We've implemented a 3-step protocol for our officers to try to address that. And I want you to know that from a law enforcement standpoint, as I'm talking about these procedures and protocols, for the most part, every law enforcement agency in the county is pretty consistent with this. We're all on the same page because we don't want to send mixed messages. But from the quarantine issue, we have a 3-step process. Our officers who encounter an out-of-state resident, whether that's a consensual contact or a call for service, we receive a call and we go out and deal with them. We're going to ask them a series of questions, simply saying, hey, how long have you been here? If they meet the criteria to meet the criteria of that executive order, we're going to issue them the executive order as well as the quarantine notice, and we're going to request that they quarantine. Now, once we're done with that, we will put that information into our shared computer system with other law enforcement agencies. We will let people know that we have given them the executive order, we have given them the instructions to quarantine, and if another officer comes in contact with that same person later and then they're in violation of the quarantine, that officer will have the discretion to enforce the executive order through a citation if needed. So that's how we're handling the quarantine issue. The next order is Executive Order 16. That closes the waterways, or the access to the waterways through the docks and the beaches and such. Again, we're using a very common sense approach to this. That order was designed and implemented to deter the recreational use of the waterways, because that's where they were having the problems, is the social gathering on the beaches, on the sandbar, tying boats together, those type things, the gathering on the beaches. So the order itself was specifically placed to deter the recreational activity on the water. Now, it also allows for some discretion when we're dealing with people that make their living on the water, commercial fishermen, or people that are building docks from the waterway. And so our officers have been given instruction to use their discretion. And if a subject lives in Bluffton but has to go to Defusky to work for the day, obviously we're going to let him do that. So we'll be monitoring the boat ramps and the docks daily. The signage has been placed or will be placed by tomorrow. We're going to try to help educate as many people as we can through this process. And then the latest executive order is the one that we received today, and that identified non-essential businesses. I think the governor was very clear in his intent for this. Starting tomorrow, we will be in the educational phase of this. It actually goes into effect at 5 p.m. tomorrow. So that gives us tomorrow to make contact with these businesses, to deliver the executive order, to deliver expectations of what we believe they should be doing based on that order. We're going to follow that up with a strong social media campaign, letting everybody know the list of businesses and how to contact the Commerce Department if they have a question, whether they're essential or they're not. Now, luckily for us here in Bluffton, a lot of these businesses have already closed. The bowling alley, the theaters, a lot of them have already taken upon themselves to do the right thing. And so they've already been closed. So that's kind of an overview of where we stand with the executive orders. And I know there's a lot of questions out there. Again, I'm going to stress that we're using the common sense approach to this, trying to help our citizens get through these difficult times, and education, enforcement. But I'd like to speak just for a few more minutes on some of the other things that we're doing as a department for our community. We've got a strong emergency management team, and Captain Chandler will speak about some of the things he's doing, but I cannot stress to you enough how hard they have been working through this crisis. And it's uncharted waters. I mean, there's not a playbook for this. It changes daily on us. And so I'm proud of that team and all the efforts that they're putting in to help guide us through this situation. But we are in constant contact with the state on daily calls, conference calls, emails, phone calls, and we're in constant contact with Beaufort County Emergency Management. And we're all on the same page. We're all working towards the same goal, and that is to take care of our community and make sure everybody stays as safe as they can. So I'm proud of that. We're using law enforcement best practices. We're looking outside of our bubble. We're seeing what other communities across the country are doing well and what they're doing wrong, and we're trying to learn from that. I'm involved in several talk groups from not only regionally, where I'm in conversation with our local law enforcement partners, the sheriff and the other chiefs. We talk probably 5 or 6 times a day, and that's realistic. We talk that many times a day to make sure we're on the same page. But I'm also talking to other chiefs from around the country. Chiefs that are in hotspot areas, trying to determine how they're keeping their people safe and what they're implementing that works and doesn't work. And so we're using best practices, and we're changing that daily. If we see something better somewhere else, we're adopting that to ensure that we're doing the best we can do. And then we're ensuring our staff is safe. the medical community is on the front lines, and then we're right out there behind them. And it's essential that we keep our staff safe, so we can continue to do our job. And that includes them having the proper equipment, and that's personal protective equipment. Right now, we're pretty well suited to handle situations here in Bluffton. More equipment's coming down through the state daily that we'll have access moving forward. We were fortunate, we got ahead of the curve just a little bit and placed an order for additional equipment. So I'm happy to say that our officers have what they need at this point in time. And we're monitoring all of our employees' health. That's important to know. It gives our staff reassurance that we're looking out for their well-being. We take temperatures daily, we ask questions. We're ensuring that they're healthy and they can continue to work. And that includes working very hard with our local medical providers for a priority testing protocol for first responders, which Beaufort Memorial Hospital really stepped up and helped us through that process. And we're proud that if something did happen to one of our first responders and there was an exposure, we have a protocol in place that we can get them tested so they know they're okay, and then they can get back to work for our community. And never fear, we're staying engaged with our community through multiple ways. We're doing book readings for our kids just so they can still continue to see us. We've got a care program where we're calling on people. You can sign up to have us check in on people on a daily basis. That was designed primarily for our elderly community, but we've had some additional people be added to that list. So we call you several times a week to check on you, see if you need anything. And then we're checking on our local businesses, especially in our old town, downtown area. We're checking in to see what we can do better. And it's important that we stay connected. And then we're assisting Beaufort County School District in their feeding program. We've got our crossing guards and some of our school resource officers out there handing out meals. It's important that we see those kids and those parents and try to assist the school district as best we can. And we've got a great relationship with Superintendent Rodriguez, and I'm proud of that. And we continue to assist where we can in that effort. And so those are some of the things that we're doing beyond just answering calls for service. We're still policing, and we're still handling all the normal calls on top of dealing with this crisis. And I'm proud of my staff. I'm proud of the leadership in the community from our council and from Mr. Orlando. And I'm proud to be here, and I'm proud of everything that we are doing to work through this crisis. And I'd like to close by saying this, is that you should know that all of your law enforcement in this community is on the same page, and we're trying to do the best we can to serve the citizens. And there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of gray area that we're trying to work through, and we'll continue to seek guidance from our legal team and the Attorney General to know what we can and can't do. But we're going to do our absolute best for you guys. And I'm going to urge that you listen to the professionals. There's a lot of information out there. Get good information from CDC, from our DHEC here locally in South Carolina. Look at our social media pages. We're sharing a lot of that information. And even though we've talked about the community doing a lot of great things, we could do better. Stay at home. Do the things that you're asked to do. Social distance. Understand what that means. And above anything else, I ask that you stay safe and stay well. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Chief. Anybody questions? Raise a hand. Any questions of Chief? One, Chief, if they're, I'm kind of looking at some of these comments, and I do appreciate the response by people, especially Lynn Hummel, Bluffton Sons responded a lot with regards to the non-essential. So thank you for that. Is there a number people could call if they see something going on? What is your advice to people who are out and about, and maybe our officers haven't gotten past there yet?
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, if it's an emergency situation, 911 is the number you need to call. The non-emergency number, give me just a minute and I'll look that non-emergency number up. Captain Chandler, do you have it?
Post it on Facebook. Maybe that's just easy.
Yes, ma'am. We'll make sure that's out there. But the non-essential number, if you have an issue or see something related to one of the violations to the executive order that you want us to follow up on, please call dispatch. They will send us out and we'll address it. And we've been doing that, and we'll continue to do that.
Thank you. I don't see anyone with questions. Bridget.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a chief issue or if it's something that Mark could address, but I know a lot of concern comes out of the big box stores. I know when I personally go into Sam's and Walmart, there is absolutely no social distancing of any sort going on. I know I went into Food Line today and they have the tape down, and they also have a little sign up for you not to put your things on the conveyor belt until the previous person's gone through. I see screens, and I know from business to business, it's going to vary based on what people are able to do. But if we're promoting the social distancing, like how do we, keep an eye on something like that? Because like I said, in the big box stores, that's definitely not being followed.
Yeah, so I'll be glad to speak to what we're doing in our jurisdiction. I know the other agencies are trying to do it. It's based on, I guess, a manpower or a call volume issue. But we're trying to visit those managers at each of the businesses in our area that we have authority and jurisdiction over. And I understand that not everybody's complying, but those that we visit with, again, if you walk into Kroger or Ace Hardware, you'll see, like you said, Food Line. I think they're trying. Some of them are doing it. There are still gaps out there that we could do better at. And I'll bring that up with my law enforcement partners that are outside of our jurisdiction to see if they could assist with that.
And Bridget, I'll jump in, Councilwoman. You know, a lot of those big box stores are not in town limits. And we do know, and I have confirmation from Beaufort County and the Sheriff's Office, we've heard, is taking the same actions that our chief is taking. So I think those folks watching tonight, I think that it's not just a simple solution to call Chief Chapman and all is well. I think his point that this is definitely a team effort across our region where he's very plugged in. We'll make sure that we're communicating your concerns as well. And if those store owners are watching tonight, or if someone watching knows those store owners, I'd urge you to have those store owners call us. Perhaps we can come there and help with Beaufort County to help them understand what social distancing means in a place of business under this emergency order.
Right. Anybody else? Again, just to reiterate, I think the most common question I've had on this is from big box stores that are outside our jurisdiction. So I would beg you to call your county representatives. Call that same number, if you call the dispatch, they'll ask the address and they'll send it to the appropriate enforcement authority too. And I see Chief shaking his head.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? We're moving on to Captain Chandler, and I'll mute my dogs.
Well, good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to quickly discuss the communication plan that we have for the department and for the town. I guess first step for that communication plan, I'll throw out the non-emergency number. It's 843-524-2777. That's the non-emergency number for our Beaufort County Dispatch. One of the things that we realized early on is that this event is going to be quickly evolving and information driven. As part of that, we established an internal communication group to gather this information and disseminate it to staff and the community as a whole. As part of that process, we created a Joint Information Center report, which is a cumulative gathering of pertinent events and information of the day. This report is then released through our social media platforms. And for those of you that aren't doing so already, please follow the Facebook pages of the Town of Bluffton, Bluffton Police Department, and the Don Ryan Center for Innovation. We have also, like the Chief said, been in daily contact with local and state partners. These can include other law enforcement agencies, chambers of commerce, hospitals, utility companies. And I'd also like to emphasize the fact, and the Chief did too, that the town and the department has dedicated men and women that the goal is to keep our community safe and informed. That's all I have.
Any questions from Council of Captain? I don't see any. Any questions or discussion about anything you've heard tonight or anything you want to discuss? And if anyone has something, raise a finger. Does anyone have anything? I'll start it. Maybe it'll get someone thinking. You know, can we put this non-essential list of businesses on our social media, maybe separate from the whole entire order, because it is 9 pages long? I've seen a lot of comments. They still say they're confused. I will tell you, I think it's as clear as anything I've heard since this has started. It is clear what the non-essential businesses are at this moment. I agree with Bridget 100%, Mark. I think we need to look at, because like I said, these non-essential businesses really are quite essential in everyday living. And how do we help them? It's just a fragment that's going to get overlooked, I fear, and I don't want to lose any of them. Let's see. That's really all. Does anyone have any questions? I think we'll answer these comments, won't we, with some of our staff? Will we be able to answer some of these questions on Facebook?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We'll have Lindsay and actually our COVID-19 communication group tracking those comments. Chief Captain Chandler mentioned that a second ago. So we'll make sure we're getting all of the relevant information out to all those comments. And so if Captain Chandler, you can make sure that happens, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, anything else for the good of everyone listening? I think we had at one point about 300 people looking, so I think our message is getting across. It may not be what you want to hear, but at least we're telling you, and we are telling you the facts about the whole thing. I can't thank our first responders enough, and I cannot thank our medical care. Larry, please pass along our wishes to your daughter and her team, because they are keeping us safe. Anyone else? You're on mute, Dan. Dan, you're on mute.
Sorry about that, Mayor. I want to thank our staff. I want to thank Mark and the chief and Terry. Y'all have stayed on top of this every single moment. You've answered every question that all of us have been asking. You have done a fabulous job in supporting this community. And I want to say also that I have a new set of heroes. And for me, that's the people that are ringing the cash registers in the grocery stores. I appreciate them as much as I do anybody right now. And so I want everybody to thank them. When you go into a Publix or a Kroger or wherever you go, they're under stress also, just like our first responders. Thank them for being there, because they are doing a really big service at this detrimental time in our history.
Amen to that. Anyone else? You know, I'm also, let's give a shout out to our legislative delegation. I know Bill Herbkersman and Weston Newton are our reps. They've been listening to us vent and plead and plead and plead. And I can't help but think maybe they got to the governor on this non-essential business. It is a step toward getting better. And I want to thank them, Jeff Bradley as well. You know, they're just always here to help for the better of our town. So thank you all, but thank you everyone. Anything else? Going once, going twice. Who wants the motion to adjourn? Who wants to do it, Mr. Hamilton? You're muted, you can't do it. Hurry.
I move that we adjourn.
Your second.
Second.
Love y'all.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Thanks to everyone.
Oh, are we staying? Okay.